Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Logan, the CMO at Amplify. If you haven't seen me before and this is your first session, welcome. This is the Amplify AI for CX Summit. We are bringing you some of the latest insights and best practices around AI in the customer experience. At Amplify, quick commercial for us. We unify data from all your structured and unstructured sources, voice, chat, email, social, virtual agents, in-house applications. We bring it all into one single view of performance. With this one view of your data, Amplify delivers role-specific insights and AI-recommended best actions. From auto QA to AI-powered coaching and gamification, over 10,000 teams worldwide use Amplify to boost productivity, improve customer experience, and drive better results in sales, support, collections, and so on. Before we get started, let's do some housekeeping items. We'll provide a link to a landing page with the recording. In the days following the webinar, there'll also be a short blog there where we summarize what we talk about today. And for this session, we will answer all your questions at the end in a live Q&A. So go ahead and, like I said before, chat them into the webinar chat or the Q&A function, and we will get to them. With that, let's get started. In this interview session titled Amplify, the E3 effect, interested to see more details on that, we talk about how AI supercharges human-centered performance. Daniel Pryfogle, the founder of Signal Hill and former CMO of CX Effect, interviews Daniel Roth, president and founder of Pangea Effect. First, with Daniel. Daniel is the founder and CEO of Pangea Effect, of course, and Pangea Effect is a transformational consultancy guiding organizations to unlock peak performance through strategy, culture, and intelligent execution. Daniel Pryfogle, our interviewer, is the founder of Signal Hill, a brand consultancy that uses narrative practice to shape healthy organizational cultures and effective leaders, compel customers to act, and sustain change over the long haul. With that, I'll pass things over to Daniel and Daniel.
All right, Scott, what a pleasure it is to have Daniel and Daniel. Daniel and I met 2 years ago at the Sundance Mountain Resort in Utah for the CX Lift event. And I was struck immediately by Daniel, by the fact that here was a guy deeply curious about technology and deeply curious about what constitutes a good life. I learned over time that we share an interest in what makes organizations tick. Spoiler alert here, it's not the technology, but technology can certainly help, which we're going to get into. Daniel is a mission-driven leader who helps companies recognize the operational gap between vision and execution. He helps organizations bridge that gap. It's about translating aspiration into scalable, high-impact results. We're going to talk about Daniel's framework for doing this work. It's called the E3 effect, as Scott mentioned, and that stands for enable, empower, and endeavor. It's a blueprint for building world-class teams. It's also the subject of Daniel's soon-to-be-released book, which is already being called a game changer by industry leaders who've seen this practice in action. Daniel grounds his perspective in years of leading customer service teams across different industries. I think it's Daniel's curiosity about people and the groups that we form, and his intuition about what gets in the way of success that really drives Daniel to lead with empathy and executional rigor, a combination that brings us to this conversation on a topic near and dear to Daniel, and that's how to scale human-first, AI-empowered customer service models. Daniel, you've spent a lot of time in the contact center space. Let's start this conversation by talking about the seemingly intractable problems that afflict contact centers year after year. Name those challenges. What are they?
Absolutely. First, thank you to everyone for joining, hoping to make sure that this is a high value event and time for you. So just jumping into your question, Daniel, the key things that are occurring over and over again, no matter how long you've been in the CX space, if you go back to your very beginning of your career, mine was 3 decades ago, the issues are the same today. The core fundamental issues is what I saw 3 decades ago. Are we hiring right? The time to proficiency based on training, based on team support, Personalization. CRM was supposed to solve that, right?
Hmm.
Yet so many companies struggle with personalization. Now they're looking to AI to solve that. And we'll talk some more about that in a little bit. Coaching is effective coaching, particularly, and being able to measure that. I'm so grateful for being able to be here and be part of this webinar because Amplify absolutely helps in that area. Mission outcomes. So, from a performance metric standpoint, are the performance metrics in line with not just the financial metrics and the operational metrics and the survey and NPS scores, but are they aligned with the mission of the organization and the mission task of your group? Those are some areas that I have seen gaps really from the beginning of my time in this industry to present.
So, Daniel, as you underscored, these are perennial issues. They just keep coming back over and over, whether it's those that you named, or we could come up with a whole other list of average handle time, just the quality. We've got frustrated customers, and then we've got agents who have low morale and, of course, high turnover. You've described this situation as a kind of locked room that we can't seem to escape. And I know you've got a slide that illustrates this situation. So there are these perennial, persistent issues, but what are the underlying issues that block us from peak performance?
Yeah, great question, Daniel. And when I have been brought into or engaged with operations where the metrics, the key metrics haven't been met, first, are there those right measurements in place? So many organizations that I've come and either supported through Pangea Effect or led in my past did not have metrics that really aligned with the business, that they could define what success looks like in just a few sentences. That's the first thing that I look for. Is success defined clearly, not just what is our schedule adherence, what is our AHT and survey scores, are we hitting top box? Yes, those are all great, but those are all, at the end of the day, lag measures. So, are there leading measures in place that the team can use to identify very early on if they are going to meet their objective, their goal, their deliverable, their metric at the end of the day? So, are there lead measures in place? And then from there, really, it starts from hiring, goes into training. How robust is that training program? When's the last time the company is truly invested into training? And it's not just about money, it's really about intentionality and continuous improvement and then identifying what are the true gaps in the operation and then coming back to training and seeing, okay, can we close that? One of my favorite things that I talk about that seems to make a difference and resonate when I enter into organizations to support them with a transformational project is how many fires have you had in the last week, in the last day, in the last month? Meaning, how many times were you not prepared for something in a way that you can just handle it easily? One of the objectives can be to make sure that you have everything in place so a fire doesn't happen. So how can you be proactive so that way you can reduce fires? Reducing fires, those times when you just have to jump and action something in a call center, those are the times it takes you away from your strategic and tactical objectives to actually move so you don't have any more or less fires. So that's just one tool that I can put out there that is useful.
You talk a lot about culture and shaping a different kind of culture, a healthy culture where team members are collaborating, where, as you said, success is defined. I appreciate the distinction between lagged measures and leading measures. How do you solve these underlying issues of dysfunction and silos, mismatch between the professed mission of the organization and its actual implementation? How do you solve those foundational issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's really what my book's about when it does come out. And that's going to be in July. So, how I solve those issues and look at them is through a system that I've created and have tested an organization after organization. And I call it the E3 effect, it being exponential. It's a multiplier, it accelerates success and building high performing teams. It turns teams around. And so, it's broken into three themes: enable, empower, and endeavor. So to enable means to be able to set expectations, to be able to make sure that your hiring profile is clearly defined and everyone involved in the interviewing and process is 100% calibrated across the team. And then from there, it gets into training. So once we get into training, now we're starting to empower our team members. Think about how many decisions from an escalation standpoint can potentially be brought back down to that team member to resolve. Do we always give the same response, a yes response or a no response, or X amount of dollars, or 3 tiers of opportunities? If you do, and that needs to go to a supervisor or manager or even above, can that be brought down lower in the organization? If you can, then when you bring knowledge, resources, and also decision making, some level of critical thinking, which is going to be a great skill to have when as AI continues to develop. So working with your teams to build critical thinking, that's empower. And then endeavor. A lot of people, including myself in the past, talk about execute. Did we execute this plan well? What do we need to execute? Execution is great. But if you think about it, the word execute means to complete something. It also really is completion for the sake of completion, the word execute. Where endeavor, which is what I assert is a stronger word to use, is not only to reach goal, but to continue to refine, to improve, to continue to strive for the optimal level. So endeavor takes execution, incorporates it, but levels it up, where you can use that to gain buy-in from the team with what you define success as during the enablement section. Once you've done that, then it's about gaining buy-in from your team. And there's many methods to gain buy-in. But biggest thing, and I believe there's a question asked in the group about how to get some engagement with when as AI is coming out and how to get the teams to not be scared.
Mm-hmm.
Include them. They care about their work. If they don't, then it's a different issue, and you got to go back to an earlier stage of why are they not engaged in their work. But if you have engaged team member, if you have influencers on your team, most of us have at least one person that everyone else listens to, whether we want them to or not. That person, if you can get their buy-in into what's happening, if you can get their input, whether you use it or not, that's different, right? But they want to feel heard. They want to be part of the journey. They all know it's coming. So to not talk about it, it actually builds distrust, is what I've found in an organization. So talk about what's coming, talk about how it's going to enable their jobs, how it's going to make a difference for them to be more efficient, more effective, and be able to solve more challenging opportunities so we can level up. You can level up the results for your customers and generate the CX at unheard levels.
We're going to come back to this question about implementing AI, but let's take a minute to dig a little bit deeper into this cultural and organizational issue. Daniel, tell me if this is right, but what I hear you saying in this E3 approach, the first two, enable and empower, are about creating the conditions where your team can thrive, where individuals thrive, and where the team as a whole thrives. And that's about being very clear about the goal, the expectations, hiring for those expectations, and then clearing the obstacles that get in the way of performance. Am I hearing you right?
Yes, you are. And just to break this down into much more condensed thought, the E3 effect is a framework for building high performing teams that just thrive at scale. So whether you're a startup or you're mid-growth, mid-sized business, or a full-scaled enterprise, this is where this makes a difference. And so the 3 phases, simply put, are enable, which is defining culture and establishing trust with the new team members and the existing team members. Empower is equipping the teams with the resources and clarity. Endeavor is aligning with purpose and scaling performance while maintaining human connection. That last piece, while maintaining human connection, is absolutely critical for any initiative to get engagement from a workforce and to keep that engagement so you can create a winning team. Teams love to win. And this is a framework to create winning teams that win over and over again.
I think, Daniel, you've touched on a couple of things that are really important and may be counterintuitive to some leaders, how we've been maybe traditionally shaped by leadership models. You mentioned that the team members care about their organization, unless it's been a bad hire, but generally, team members care about their organizations and about their individual and collective success. They also seek autonomy. And so, this human dimension, we're going to get to the technology in just a moment, but the human dimension just feels so critical to getting this right.
Absolutely, Daniel. So call centers, CX is a people first business. No matter how much AI gets brought in, I've seen organizations at 90% plus, 95% deflection. I've seen companies that just shut off the phone lines, wait, connect. And sometimes that's actually the business strategy to do it. And so if that's your strategy from day one, that's one thing. But if you're in the transition, trying to drive that deflection and service and support through AI, you need to focus on people first. And so with the people, the one metric that I use and I found very effective is, are they engaged? And so there's a lot of ways to recognize engagement. Have they come up to their supervisor or their leader or whoever they report to with a new idea recently? How can we make a small improvement or a large improvement to make a difference for either the employee experience or the customer experience? How are they doing with their metrics? Has their performance changed recently? So all the things that many of you know, those all apply. And then particularly if you see a performance change from someone, that might show a sign of lack of engagement. It might have nothing to do with work, by the way. Work might be going great, but their personal
Right,
life, there's some
right.
stuff going on and taking bandwidth from their focus from work. So engagement is absolutely critical. And with engagement, you can get buy-in. Buy-in comes from including them in the journey of the decision, except for the few highly confidential ones that you cannot include them in. But anything else, if you include them, then they will buy in and they will help you refine the strategy to be able to get your first win moving towards the ultimate objective or initiative's goals. Daniel, real quick, I want to define win. So winning is achieving a milestone or a metric that's critical to the organization overall, to the mission of the organization. And so wins can be very small. I had a team that production was very low for them. The effectiveness, the number of rework was extremely high. Came in, spent about 15 days assessing, interviewing, observing, and we had to move very quick here. So there's a quicker timeline than sometimes can be done, and I understand that. But then worked with them to set a goal for a metric that they knew was important.
Mm,
So I didn't just go and say, hey, you're at 35%, you now need to be at 60%. Unless it's a relatively easy change, it's probably not gonna get there right away. So I
yeah,
might work with them, go, can we get to 37.5%? Can we
yeah.
get to 40%? And those I call step goals. Get them
Small wins. Yeah.
getting small wins. It's a flywheel effect. Small
Yes.
wins grow. It's just like the snowball, right? On the
Yep.
mountain.
Yep. That's so good. Okay, so now, assuming that we've done this foundational work on culture, on creating the conditions for success, clarity about how we're defining success, we now get to the technology. How does AI work with, support, or accelerate E3?
Absolutely. And this has to do some with another question received around what can professionals begin to do today to get in the game if they've been on the sidelines with using AI. So this is about that as much as if you're already using it or thinking about it at any phase in the implementation. First, AI has different roles. AI is a very generic term, and there's many different forms of AI. I'm not going to get into that. That's not what this session's about. But are we looking at AI to improve our selection process at hiring? Are we looking at AI to provide a more natural, real world experience during training for scenario-based training? Are we using AI to drive deflection and also agent assist? Are we using it for that? Are we using it for workflows behind the scenes just to make the experience faster and better? Are we using it for coaching and development? And so there's a lot of different roles of AI. So I think getting clear on what is your biggest problem that you're trying to solve, where AI could potentially make a difference. And then once you've identified that problem, Then you can start exploring the AI solutions out there. But really, the first step is to write your use cases. That is the biggest gap I found in organizations when they want to roll out AI. They have not clearly defined the use cases. So if you're someone that writes use cases for the product team to create improvements or new products, it's the same type of use case. It basically describes, for those that aren't familiar with use cases, it basically describes the problem succinctly and clearly, the optimal outcome that you want when that problem is solved, and then any metrics associated with that, and then workflows that would, and topics like if it's you want the IVR to be AI based, okay, what are people calling in about? Which ones are the biggest problems?
Yeah.
Or what are the most frequent FAQs that the IVR can start taking with the interactive voice agent? Use cases is where you begin, and that will help you define and help move very quick. It'll also help you get ROI conversations going with those that need that to improve the financial side.
Yeah, that's essential. We're curious about the audience that's listening in today and whether they think their organizations have done the foundational work to truly harness the power of AI. Scott's going to send out a quick poll. The question is, how prepared are you for AI? While folks are responding, Daniel, I want to pose the final question. You've actually started to move in this direction already. Where should leaders start when they're thinking both about creating the conditions for success, the E3 effect, and implementing AI? Where should they start?
So defining the problem. What is the problem you really need to solve? And even before that, if you're not clear on how the company defines success for your team and how that aligns to the company's mission, that is absolutely critical. What I've found, many of you may have found, is that it for a human, for a person to be able to truly engage and stick around, which is very important, right? Building that experience, that tenure, they have to feel like they're making a difference, and they have to feel
Mhm.
like what they do aligns with the business that they work for.
Yeah,
And if those things all match, then you're really getting into problem solving. Once you have identified the problem, as I just shared, Daniel, the steps there.
yeah,
At the same time, if you need to move fast, you can do a simultaneous paths, parallel tracks. You can start researching AI solutions while putting together the use cases, while having conversations with the team about ways that they feel would make a difference. And you might have to educate them on how AI actually benefits a CX operation. And
yes,
so if you educate them on that, they will get engaged in,
yeah.
and then they'll feel like they're part of the solution. And then you get a lot of progress from there. So you can run parallel tracks just depending on your team and your situation.
And I think you're more capable of going down parallel tracks if you've attended to these foundational issues of culture and trust and buy-in and all of that, right? You're going to find greater capacity as you attend to these cultural and organizational issues.
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. And this is why I chose to write a book on the E3 effect and not
Yeah.
about AI or any other technologies. It's foundational. If
Yes.
culture is not right to support change, if resilience isn't there in the team, if communication is not there, then that's where to really start.
Yeah, indeed.
That enables success and gives you the highest chance success and to do it quickly, or at least as quick as it should be done.
Yep.
Without that culture, without that engagement and buy-in, it's going to be much harder, if not impossible. And if harder, and it will probably be much more complex to solve and get in place. So look at your culture, look at engagement from your team, and see if you have buy-in. If you don't, then I lay out the steps in the E3 effect coming out in July.
All right. Fantastic. Scott, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you. We do have results from the poll in, and it looks like most everyone is talking but not acting, or maybe taking some small actions there, and the rest of you are ready to go and ready to hit the ground running with AI. I think that what I've seen in all the sessions so far is that what you keyed in on, Daniel, is defining the problem. And that is what has been the constant across all sessions is starting with the end in mind and working backwards from that is always something that is important. But the thing that you added that was great was making sure that end in mind has some goals and metrics and business outcomes that are associated with it. So if it's reduce AHT, what does that get you? And so it's making sure that you've gone through that exercise because perhaps organizations haven't gone through that exercise. Can you address that for some of the folks who are maybe in the weeds with the team versus the leaders who are high up above that and only have the business goals? How do you connect those two really well?
It's a great question, Scott, and it's a constant issue that I've seen over and over again. Where I've seen success in being able to connect the C-suite or executive leaders, senior leaders with the manager frontline execution, supervisor execution, is really having many alignment conversations. Ask questions like, what does success look like to you for the call center? What are you expecting from us? Besides the metrics, what are your outcomes that you want at the end of the day? So that way we can make sure we're always navigating towards that, the end, keeping the end in mind. But have you checked with other departments? The more departments that you have conversations with and have that type of conversation, what do you need from us? By the way, we need this from you to be able to execute that. And that might set up a whole string of actions behind it. But engaging as many departments you can creates buy-in, and then they will help influence where you want to go because they are part of that journey and they know it'll make a difference for their work so they can execute their mission for the organization.
Absolutely. And then to readdress one of the earlier questions I came across on anxiety around the team and adding AI, just to add a customer story, then I'll lead to the follow-up here, is one leader that I was on a call with said that she really framed it as, listen, AI is not going to take your jobs. I'm here to protect you. We're all valuable together for our customers, and we're absolutely needed because we're seeing the trend of agents slow down, but it's still increasing when we do our research on that. And then we see AI agents is spiking a little bit in the last few quarters or last couple of years, and more so now. But the number of engagements is going way up. And so you have more mechanisms to address all the transactional things. And so how she's framing it, and her team was really well accepting this really well, this transition is, listen, all the transactional moments that just make your day mundane and perhaps boring at times, those are now more easily handled by the AI. You're going to get more of the complex, more robust answers that you need to provide to make your day more engaging and fun and create that environment that creates more good days. And so I think that the framing of it is really important. But one thing that you mentioned is creating that culture and getting to the point where you can have that discussion in a really constructive way. And much like when I train sales reps, you always go with the folks who everyone leans on, and that is definitely a huge part of it. But what can you do if you already have your team meetings, you already have your quarterly meetings, you have your business reviews? That's the vehicle. But what do you do in those meetings maybe differently that can create a more positive culture around more easily accepting these massive changes?
Yeah, Scott, that's such an important question. First, I just want to add something with that scenario. So for that business, it sounds like being able to say that your jobs are not at risk to some level, it will work. There are places like I've been someplace where I had to actually bring in AI and outsource, do the combination of the two, and everyone's job except for a few key people, supervisors, managers, would not be with us anymore. So I never said just, hey, we're just not going to have a team because there's some confidentiality, again, some things you just can't talk about right away. But I also didn't say you're going to have a job. I actually worded it and phrased it. Listen, at the end of the day, the business has a mission, and our job is to help the company have that mission come true. And we need to evolve with the business. And none of our jobs are permanent. None of our jobs are guaranteed, including my own. I put myself into the conversation. It's authentic and it builds trust, builds rapport. So I just put myself into that conversation. And the truth is, right, something could change. And so that's how one way I do it, Scott. The other thing is really on the cultural front. If you already have all the meetings, all the communication set up, I would take a look at what you're covering the meetings. I would take a look at how intentional is your conversations, not just for the meeting today, this week, this month, but what's your 6 month roadmap? What's your 12-month roadmap? How does this meeting help move you, the business, not you, but the business and the team in the direction of your 6 month roadmap? Have you shown them your 6 month roadmap? At least parts of it where they can make a difference? Are they engaged in it? So I would take a look at really, are we just solving the problems today? That's firefighting. Or are we solving the problems that are of the future, or getting ready for the future by solving problems today over a long period of time? Stop the fires.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Seeing that their day-to-day work does affect the larger
Yeah.
scale plan, and then how can they increase their own skill set and their own professional development all at the same time. I think that does help significantly. That hits all the questions that have come in. Are there anything that you want to add and close on by either of you?
I'll just add, if you haven't started yet, I saw that was one of the bigger percent, or you're stuck. You're started, but you're stuck. What is one small thing you can do today? What is one small action or two small action you can take tomorrow or this week? Whether that's having one phone call conversation, spending 30 minutes on the use case, setting up a call with a vendor, or meeting with your team, having a unique session separate from your regular communications about a particular topic. What is one thing or two things you can do right now? Don't worry about solving the big overall. That will come. If you take enough steps, you'll get there. It's really all about the action and the steps, and that they align with an end goal that you or your organization or your team has defined.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Daniel, and add that we're not trying to boil the ocean here. The task is to build that flywheel as you described it, Daniel, those small wins. Scott, to your question about how to use these regular meetings in a different way, I think one thing that's really helpful is to ask the team members what's working, what worked in the last shift of the last day in terms of managing call flow. And if the conditions are right, if you've attended to culture, they'll share. And from that, you can begin to just imagine, okay, so how do we build on that over the next shift? How do we take what worked here and do more of that tomorrow? Having those kinds of conversations invites the team members to shape the direction, to shape the plan, and it's with that kind of engagement that they are going to, I think, come to play a greater role in helping to figure out how do we use the technology to support this human-centric enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And
May I
with
just
the,
jump in
go for it.
one last thing? So AI, because I talked a lot about teams and culture, but bringing it back to AI is an enabler. It's an accelerator. It's a
Yeah,
multiplier. It's not the solution. It's not something that is a replacement of. If you're thinking like that, I encourage you to think about it differently as an enabler, a multiplier, and an accelerator. I think you will find that your conversations with teams to gain their buy-in, and including leadership, by the way, in finance, to gain their buy-in will increase the effectiveness of those conversations.
indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like what you were saying, Dana Pryfogle, with the asking them. You could even ask them, how would you see AI being able to help your role? Like,
Yes.
how do you
Yes.
want to see this rolled out instead of just being told it all the time?
That's right.
And then on when this shift ends, what could we have done better? For maybe a director or VP, you're like, yeah, we're always just going to take the good ideas and implement them. But for an agent or anyone who's an individual contributor, to be able to highlight that person, highlight that idea, double down on, hey, that was great. We're now doing this, and announcing it that this idea came from this person, that holds a ton of pride. And people want to stay working at places where they get to use their ideas and see them come to life. Even if it's a small little change, I wouldn't downplay that at all, because that's where you're going to be able to have a more constructive environment no matter what department you work in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Great.
Absolutely.
This is one of my favorite sessions for sure, as team building is a huge part of this, especially in the customer service teams. We actually have one more question if you two have a moment. Do you have any ROI and use case templates you can recommend, or some places that a lot of people are having success early on as proven starting points, so we're not always just grabbing at straws?
I'll jump in there, and Daniel, if you have anything to add. Another great question. You need the tools to be able to be successful, especially as you go to finance for approvals. So, from an ROI standpoint, I have found what's very effective is find one thing. If you haven't yet had an AI project approved, find one thing with AI where you can get a 1 year, within 1 year, the return on investment. If you can come back with that, it's highly likely that they'll be very open to your idea, where in 2 years at the longest. If it's longer than that, I recommend taking another look. Is there a different part of the business or that you could actually bring AI to, or to be able to have that effectiveness? As far as a template, yeah, there are many standard templates out there. I would encourage you, if you just honestly Google ROI templates, you will definitely find some, or use ChatGPT or your favorite AI and enabler and ask. You'll get a decent one, but it needs to be customized to your specific need. We did one for a digital workforce management tool to streamline workforce management and lessen the need to rely on Excel, Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. And that was a very custom ROI template from the one that we did for an IVA, call deflection. So it would take some level of a conversation, Laura, to be able to help to provide the right one. And then use case templates, 100%. I laid out a couple of the topics there that you want, but define the problem, define what the best, highest level of success looks like, solving that problem, define the metrics, and then define the workflows that impact that. And from there, that will put everything together. And then the AI organization will actually help you close any gaps with that use case at that point. I've worked with Amplify before, brought them in, and they helped us in that exact way. We put some use cases together, and then they helped us adjust it and modify it to optimize for working with Amplify.
I would add, Daniel, to that last point, that if you dig into the Amplify website, you're going to find some great case studies and use cases. Dig into the other AI providers, you'll find similar stories. I would encourage folks the cost saving stories are out there for sure. But if you're concerned about team member engagement, focus on those revenue generating case studies, because now you've unleashed the power of your team and your culture to grow the business rather than reducing it. And yeah, more and more, all of the providers have really good stories that they can share, and they can be customized, translated into your own context.
And I'll add one thing, Laura, and for others where this is of interest, and that is there's a shortcut to ROI calculators. Go ask the vendor you're talking to, and then keep on that message of, you need to help me with the ROI. It's their job to help you create the ROI with a level of clarity that then you can bring it to the powers that be that you need to bring it to for approvals. So shortcut, go talk to the vendors, tell them I need an ROI calculator, help them with the inputs for it, and then keep pushing them until they get it to a format that is really usable for you. I have found, especially in the AI space, because there is so much new, that there's been a lot of willingness to do that. It not only helps you and me close that opportunity and get it approved, but also it helps that organization be better at future ROI conversations with other prospects of theirs and opportunities. So it's a real win-win situation if you approach it that way.
Yeah. And y'all aren't giving yourselves a plug, but it's the whole reason that at Amplify we chose you folks just like you two who are vendor agnostic, who specialize in technology advising and process and improvement in your customer experience just in general to present for us, because you're a great starting point too. If you're spinning your wheels, maybe you're having trouble prioritizing what's going to affect the business the most. Absolutely, organizations like both of yours, reach out to them, everyone, and they can help you along the way and make sure that you are getting something that is effective, whether it includes software or not, to be able to get the results that you're looking for, or even find out what would be the most impactful. Definitely reach out to either of these two to be able to start down that path. And with that, I will conclude everything. Thank you, Daniel Roth and Daniel Pryfogle, is giving us some great information. This has been a fantastic session. It's the only session that really talked in depth about that team building and culture and how to bring the non-technology side up to speed. So
Yeah.
thank you for all the insights that you shared.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Great. And thank you everyone for joining. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Take care.